On my honor, I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for their actions. I will always uphold the Constitution, the community, and the agency I serve.
Welcome to the On the Blue Line podcast. I am your host and founder, Wayne Mulder. We are dedicated to helping law enforcement officers both on the job and off the job. And I am so glad you joined us this week. This is Monday Morning Roll Call. It is a weekly podcast that we release on Monday mornings. We're going to go over the events of the week, important upcoming events and issues that are on my mind, and hopefully some of the things that are bothering you and different things that come up that we can help you with. In fact, if you have any questions or concerns or anything that you want to discuss, please make sure you drop that into the comments or through some of our social media feeds so that we can get that information to you. Starting in the coming months, we're going to start bringing you a new podcast, and that one's going to be an interview show format. I'm pretty excited about it. We're going to talk to different people in law enforcement and the takeaway, the things that can help you and I in our daily lives away from the job, as well as some things that might be able to help us on the job. In the meantime, I want to tell you, if this is the first time listening to us, if you've just located us or found us, check us out. Go to ontheblueline.com. I encourage you to go over to our website. On there, you're going to find different resources. There's a blog. It's topical, and it's somewhat of a story format, but just different issues that affect us as law enforcement, as well as life in general. So there's a little bit of everything on there as it's being built out. But I encourage you to check out the website. We also can be found on Facebook, of course, but we have a closed Facebook group. It's On the Blue Line Guild, G-U-I-L-D, On the Blue Line Guild. And I encourage you to go over and check that out. We'd love for you to join us. That's going to be one of the more active locations where we discuss different things that matter to you and to us in law enforcement or as law enforcement supporters. If you have some questions and different things that you'd like to learn, I encourage you to go there, check us out, join us, and just send a request in and we'll get you approved. And we'd love to have you in there continuing the conversation with us. We're also very active on Twitter. That's On the Blue Line, the number one, On the Blue Line, the number one. So as you can see, we are on all the social media outlets just like everybody else is. So if you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're reading, and you'd like more information, definitely look for us wherever you do the social media thing. This week, we're going to be doing something a little bit unorthodox. Sadly, as many of you have seen in the media and in the news, there's been a lot of suicide-related deaths of law enforcement officers, as well as military, as well as everyone who serves in blue and so forth. I mean, depression and the effects of depression and stress and different things related to these lines of work have led to some staggering numbers. The Huffington Post earlier this year put out an article where they said for the third straight year, police suicides outnumber line of duty deaths. I know in 2016, the number of suicide deaths for law enforcement was 140. In 2017, 159, and that was the same number for 2018. Now, it's interesting, not all numbers are calculated by, hey, this was a law enforcement officer who committed suicide. So depending on the jurisdiction, where this stuff was put together, there's a little bit of back end double checking that the researchers had to do to get these numbers. But still, it's staggering. Still, we definitely have a problem. We definitely have a concern. And we definitely have something that needs to be dealt with. And I think we all can agree on that. In recent weeks, I too had a tragedy that hit very close to home, to my job, to where I work. And we lost someone. And we lost someone who we would all ask the question, what happened? Why? We just don't understand it. We never will understand it, and I don't want to delve too deep in that. I don't want to make this that heavy of a show. But there's definitely tragedy when these things happen. So this week, for the Monday morning roll call, I decided I was going to do something a little bit unorthodox, something that we haven't done before and something we probably will never do again. In the days after the passing of somebody whom I knew and somebody who hits close to home, I had written an article that I felt needed to be written. It really doesn't have anything specific in it. It's just speaking about law enforcement and the sounds and the things that come with law enforcement that are unique to that industry. However, when you think about it, there's sounds, there's identifiers, there's ways we look at different things, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what you do for a living. So, what I wanted to do in the hours that after I had gotten the news is I had written this article. And for whatever it's worth, I just want to read it. Some people will take the time to read. It's about 2,000 words, give or take, and some people will take the time to read it on the blog post, but others, whether you're out jogging or walking or driving in your car, or maybe you're on duty right now, whatever you're doing. That's why I wanted to just do this different format this week and just take an opportunity to read it to you and give you an opportunity to hear the words that were written, and hopefully something in there will resonate with you. Without further ado, this is writing. It's called The Silence. Sound. It is an interesting thing. For those blessed with hearing, a sound can mean so much. It can mean everything. Sound is one of the primary ways we experience the world. From the time we are a little child, sound sticks with us and begins to define our perception of the world. Sounds such as the lullaby that Mom used to sing, the seriousness in Daddy's voice, and the understanding tone of a loving grandma all begin to clarify our place in the world. This continues throughout our life and begins to exemplify the defining moments. Maybe it is our favorite song we hear on the radio, the music we first danced to, the understanding voice reflection of a close friend. These sounds provide the backdrop of our world as we know it, and our understanding of it. The definition is true with many types of industries and vocations. Sound begins to describe a career in the moments within it. The whir of machinery, simple taps on a keyboard, the drip of a coffee maker, the distant voices congregating in a break room, and the sound of the boss's footsteps coming down a hall. They become the drumbeat that fills the background of our everyday life. Over time, they dissipate into the dull hum that plays out in our everyday moments. But if you stop every once in a while and try to push back against the noise, you will hear the simplest and most distinct of sounds that make up our everyday life. Law enforcement is no different. Sound fills the tapestry of everyday life on the job. Sounds that are not as common or simply do not exist in other careers. It can start with the simplest, purest form of noises, until the sounds build on each other, each beginning to tell a story as they build into a crescendo. The simple sound of a zipper on the side of an issued black Rocky boots, the swooshing sound they make as the zipper tightens the support of the boot around the ankle of the officer, the audible click that is heard as the snap is closed on the black leather keeper that goes over the zipper, the sound of Velcro being pulled apart, its distinctive ripping sound made as the sides of the ballistic vest is tightened and retightened to get the snug fit just right. The sound of Velcro being pulled as the outer duty belt is straightened to the inner duty keeper belt, moving it, loosing it, to get it to fit just right below the vest. The sound of metal clicking as the snaps on belt keepers are clasped, each placed strategically around the belt to hold it in place in case something was to catch the belt. Someone was to grab the belt, or the weight of the tools coupled with gravity would cause it to shift. The distinctive sound of a magazine being slipped into a handgun. The metallic sound of the slide moving forward to chamber around. The audible click that can be heard as the firearm is slipped into a retainment holster and nestled into place. The click of the magazine release as it is again removed from the holstered firearm. One last round entered, and then placed again into the magazine well with a click. The clicks, the snaps. They each continue, with their own distinctive tone, as the radio is put in its place, along the belt, and the cord for the microphone is ran to the uniform's shoulder. Cameras are affixed with the faint sound of magnets finding their attraction. Flashlights are added, and piece by piece the uniform is put in place. The uniform coming together as a symbol of the vocational role this person plays in the world. The human sound of a sigh as they take one glance in the mirror to make sure that it is all there. the sound of exhalation as the unrelenting thought of, what am I missing, comes to the forefront. The sound of one last pat down as all the pockets and holders are checked and inventories to make sure that everything is present. The sounds now move outside. The sound of a car door on an agency vehicle being shut. The door to a unique office environment, unique to only a few careers. Next comes the sound of the engine starting and the fan noise as the heat or air conditioner kicks on and is adjusted. The whir of fans begins to chime in as the computer and radio come to life, and the beeps and notifications they send out announcing their resurrection fill the air. The symphony is in full display as the sound of the tapping of keys on a laptop keyboard join in, and the passwords, routing information, dispatch logs, and other information comes to life at their fingertips. The shrill sound of voices begin to pierce the dull rumble of background noise. Dispatchers and officers begin the back and forth electronic communication. The penetrating sound of excited voices on in-progress calls. The defeated sound of an officer dealing with the one call he was hoping he would not get. And the questioning sound of dispatch wanting to know the details of the call, knowing more is happening than what is being relayed. The ear-piercing sound of a radio tone-out. The high-pitched squeal that makes all officers stop whatever they are doing and pay attention. The questions come fast. What is happening? Where is it happening? Who is there? These sounds encompass every part of the job, each distinctive in its own right, but collectively loud and harsh. The sound of sirens on a patrol car trying to keep time with the flashing red and blue lights. The distinctive sound of fire rescue and emergency service vehicles, their red and yellow lights reflecting in the sky. The sound of tires on asphalt, as a vehicle is driven fast or the squeal of a vehicle turned too quickly on pavement. The rushing sound of the engine when the gas has to be applied rapidly. Some noises are so unique to the profession that they cannot be confused with any other. The well-known sound of handcuffs being clicked, the metal-on-metal clasping which leads to a loss of freedom. A sound so distinctive that it can produce a knowing sigh or an angry outburst. Every call comes with its own distinctive sounds. The sound of voices telling you what happened from their perspective, each voice vying for your attention, each seeking to get an audience before you, knowing that a decision will be made that could impact their life forever. Sometimes these voices can never be forgotten. The scream of a mother who's just lost a child. The sound of an enraged man whose high has caused him to act out. The cry of a wife who just saw her husband end his life in front of her. The disturbing sounds that signify the end of life. They are often the most haunting of sounds. The sound of agonal breathing, the gurgle of liquid and air that can often be the prelude for life slipping away. There are some sounds in this career that are so distinct that everyone knows their importance, regardless of their walk of life. Chief of these sounds is the sound of a gunshot. Its projectile, piercing the air, disturbing the quiet of home and neighborhood. The concern calls, the responding sirens, the vehicles still running as they're parked on subdivision streets. But not all sounds are this harsh in their delivery. Some sounds that surround law enforcement whisper as they join in the nightly chorus. The simple cadence of footsteps on a building check in the early morning hour. The strike of the boot on concrete providing a percussion line in the darkness. Sometimes it is the simple sound of a child's voice saying thank you at the window of your mobile office. Other times it is the grateful sound of the cashier saying thank you for what you do, or the citizen stopping to shake your hand with a knowing smile, saying thank you for your service. These softer tones are the ones that help to stem the roar of evil that exists in the shadows where we serve. Yet over time, the harsher tones often win out. They become the overwhelming sound that can define the career. The quiet thank you is lost to the sirens and screams. They are the sounds that often cannot be escaped from. It is this sound that cannot be escaped from that is the worst of all. For when it builds and builds into a crescendo, it becomes so overwhelming that it is all that you hear. Building and building until it finally overwhelms the senses. What once was background noise now takes over every aspect of thought. At this point, there is little perceived alternative but to silence the noise. Sound has become the enemy. The repetitious, haunting nature of these sounds does not dissipate without intentionality. Sadly, in some cases, the sound becomes too much. A constant humming tone, a tinnitus of sorrow. For some, the sound is so overbearing that it must end. The quiet must be allowed back in. The demons that once danced on the edge of the darkness just outside the light have crept in through shadows, moving closer and closer, enveloping more and more light, creating the sense of anxiety and the feeling of no escape. For some, you may hear the sound of the alcohol bottle being opened, and the sound of liquid being poured over ice. For others, it may be the click from the plastic safety lock on a bottle of pills, and the sound of a swallow as they seek relief. In the most tragic of cases, what you may hear are sounds of finality. These sounds can be the rubbing of a rope over an exposed rafter, the cut of knife against skin, the click of a firearm being loaded, followed by the explosion as the trigger is pulled. These are always accompanied by secondary sounds. Involuntary noise created by the inevitable stoppage of motion. The sound of a firearm falling and landing on the floor. The shuffling sound of a body slumping over as gravity begins to pull, unimpeded from the strength of the living. Sounds of horror such as the gurgle of blood for a few final moments. The sound of dripping fluid on the surfaces below. That is when you hear it. Its voice now screams in the background for all to hear. It is the inevitable sound of silence. The drumbeat of voices has silence for this one, a final silent moment. Or at least that is what is believed to have come. However, in reality, peace cannot come of this type of tragedy. The sound dissipates for one only, to become louder for all those who knew them. As the moments pass, the sound comes roaring back in the land of the living, among the brothers and sisters who must bear the weight of what has happened. A new roar of noise is heard above the others. The sound of grief and loss has permeated all who knew them. The sound of phone calls and scheduling, the sounds of responding units, the sounds of loss and heartache, tears and brokenness, the sounds of family members hearing the tragic news of loss, the sounds of their grief-stricken reactions to the news, and the sounds of press conferences and media being notified that a brother or sister decided the noise was too much. They needed relief. The sound of questions being asked, questions that can never be answered. Why? How could we not see it? Why didn't they come talk to me? What was going on? Why was it so unbearable that they didn't think they could reach out? Did they reach out and I somehow missed it? The questions turned to anger, then resentment, then resolve, until finally acceptance. Over time, the silence again returns. This time it is a haunting silence. No more will those boots be zipped. The sound of a duty belt will never again find the Velcro. The snaps of the duty belt keepers will never again be heard as is being put together to be worn. The vehicle will never again be started by that officer, and the computer and radio will not come to life to signal the start of another day. Their voice will never be heard across the airwaves of those who wear the radio. The sirens will not fill the air, and the lights will no longer flash and reflect. Never again will that officer hear the cry of a parent, the whisper of a child, or the wail of a loved one. It will be for them always silence. But this story does not end in silence. Not today. Today is different. This tragedy, this horror, this loss, this has prompted a new sound. Sounds meant to override the pulsating drumbeat of evil noise. Today, a brother called a brother or sister just to ask how they were doing. A knowing and understanding voice to calm the storm. Today, a hug was given between zone partners. A knowing touch to make sure they knew that they did not have to bear this cross alone, for the pain is easier carried on multiple shoulders. Today at read-off, a pat on the back from a supervisor told a fellow officer, "I am here for you, anytime you need me." And today, a thank you note slipped into an agency mailbox told a new officer that they were being thought of and prayed for. Today, the silence is no more. No more is the struggle solely with the internal demons of one. It is the shared voice of the defiant, of the strong, of the courageous, the unified voice of the collective saying, "We will not lose another on our watch." It is a unified voice saying, "We will hold this line together." Thank you for letting me read that to you. I greatly appreciate it. I apologize if this is a format that you don't like with the reading. I promise you that I will not make a habit out of doing that. I just felt that this week, since the words were already written, that I thought were so important to get out there, that I was going to take the opportunity to just put this out to you. If you are someone who is in the line of duty and you are struggling, I encourage you to reach out. I encourage you to make that phone call. No matter what agency you with, no matter where in this country you work, no matter what state you're in, there are resources and they are available to you. They are available to me. There are employee assistance programs. There's possibly a chaplain corps, depending on what agency you're with. There's going to be all sorts of different mediums that you can reach out to. For those suffering with loss, for losing somebody that you love, for somebody that you cared for somebody that you've worked with, for an acquaintance, I want to encourage you. You know, there's nothing easy about this line of work. And I know we say that and it seems a little matter of fact and maybe just kind of, the obvious elephant in the room statement, but there isn't anything easy about what we do, what we see on a daily basis, the tragedy we see. Now don't get me wrong, and I think this is something that we're going to talk more about as we go forward, because it's not all about the tragedy. Sometimes it's the simple joys of what we get to see, the newness of life, the humor in life. Those are all part of law enforcement also. But so is the tragedy. So is the dark side. And as sad as this is, and as sad as it always will be to lose anyone, and as I stated at the end there, I hope that we never lose another. But even in the sadness, we can be there for each other. We can put that proverbial arm on the shoulder, that proverbial hug, that knowing, hey, I'm here for you. We can get through this. We can get through this together. So no matter what you do, whether you are in law enforcement, whether you support law enforcement, I welcome you to join us. Join us every Monday morning for the Monday Morning Roll Call. This is just one episode. Like I said, a little bit different format, but going forward, we're going to discuss these issues that matter to you. And, more importantly, we're going to try to work on our lives away from work and what we can do together to be better people, humans, stronger, resilient, and better law enforcement officers, all while maintaining the things that are most important, which is our home and our family life. So I thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you at Roll Call next week. In the meantime, I encourage you to check us out. Check us out again at ontheblueline.com, or go to our closed Facebook group, On the Blue Line Guild, On the Blue Line Guild, and I hope to see you there. You have a wonderful week, and we will see you all on the Blue Line.